I'm in Cleveland, Mississippi today, and behind me is the new Sign Hotel. It's kind of hard to understand why the Trump organization would want to be partners with a hotel in the middle of Mississippi, in the poorest region of the poorest state of the nation. But when you meet my friend Dinesh Chawla, you're going to understand why. There's much more to the man than meets the eye. He's an incredible business mind. He's an incredible hard-working human being, and he's just a good person. I've learned so much from him, and I wanted the opportunity to give you the chance to learn from him as well. Here's my first part of the series, an interview with Dinesh Chawla. I hope you enjoy.
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Dinesh?
Hey, how are you doing, man?
It's
Long
good to
time
see
no
you. I know. Hadn't been that long.
I know.
You know, I wanted to kind of go back in time a little bit when you and I first met,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked about this off camera a little while ago, but the similarities of growing up with strong father figures and how important was that for you, having a strong father figure in your life?
I mean, it was critical. I'm a father now, so the perspective is a lot more clear to me. It's a lot more focused on what his early contributions to my development meant. I'll give you an example. When I was 12 years old, I used to work at the grocery store, and at the end of the day, he would make the deposit. And he would always count the bills twice. You know, he would use the adding machine, and it had to be exact. You know, you couldn't figure out what you did or whatever. And I mean, if you had to make 9 or 10 tries at it, he would go after you. You have to have it perfect. And then when you actually made the bank deposit, all the bills had to be lined up straight. You had to make a nice crease in the center of your stack of bills. They had to be in order. There could be no folded corners. The rubber band had to be in the center. I mean, you're talking about a 12-year-old kid.
Yeah.
You know, you can't get...
I mean, I'm thinking about my 10-year-old as you're saying this.
Yeah, exactly. And you talk to college kids now and tell them the importance of this, and they're just going to laugh at you like, you know, what kind of cranky old man are you? But my father would make me do that, and that was the condition that I could ride to the bank with him and make the bank deposit the next day.
So that's how you got time with your dad.
Yeah, really.
No, it was the same way with me growing up.
But you know, the thing is, I just thought in the early part, I just thought he was just kind of fussy and very strict, authoritarian person. And then one time when I was about 18, 19 years old, a good 6, 7 years after that, I walked into a bank and left the deposit with the teller. And as soon as she looked at it, she smiled and she said, "Oh, it's one of Dr. Chawla's deposits. We love those here." And I just thought, you know, why? Because it wasn't an especially large amount or anything like that. And I asked her, I said, "Why do you love his deposit?" She said, "The bills are always straight, they're crisp, you know, there's no folded corners, the amounts always match. I mean, it's the most perfect deposit. He's been coming in here for so many years, and we never have to recount his money or straighten the bills out afterwards or anything." And I realized at the time that Dad was teaching me the value of good workmanship, but he was also indirectly teaching me the value of how much other people appreciate your good workmanship. And it never registered to me when he was telling me that as a kid, as a 12-year-old, and until I saw that, had that one experience, I just thought it was old-fashioned, you know, just fussiness, and I learned a lot in that one moment there. And as I've gone through a lot of experiences over the last 40 years, which is how long I've been here and in business, I keep hearing conversations that we had when I was 12 or 15 or 16, and it registers 35 years later. That's why he told me that. So he was planting seeds that I would not see sprout from the ground for decades. And the fact that I listened to him quite a bit, I wasn't really rebellious, not in the way most kids are.
Yeah, you were like me.
Yeah.
You worked in the family business early on, just like I did. At 12 years old, I was driving a tractor.
Well, okay. Yeah, so you can appreciate all this, the same perspective. But those seeds, when, you know, it sprouts all those years later, you're just humbled. like, wow, he spent that time investing his energy and explaining it in a very detailed fashion with a 12, 13-year-old kid who absolutely did not appreciate it, but he knew it would be of some value. So, that makes you appreciate what a parent should be.
With me, and I'm listening to you tell this, and I'm wondering if you had this experience with your mom that I did, because I had my dad that was at one point a military guy, so a lot of the same kind of tendencies. And then I had my mom that if I came home and said I want to be a bank robber, she'd be, oh son, you'd be the best little bank robber that ever lived. So how was your mom? Was she like the balance to that, like my mom was?
Very much. Mom always worried because it's a generational thing. We don't tend to yell like the older generation.
Right.
They could just spout off or do the backside of their hand, whatever it was. That was kind of common in the 60s and 70s. When we grew up, or I'm a little bit older than you are, but still, in the 60s and 70s, parenting was a little bit different, and mom was kind of the protective layer there.
Yeah.
She did encourage me, but she did it with a caveat that your dad's doing this for your own good.
Yeah,
so
of course.
She didn't, say, don't worry, everything will be okay. She said, you'll do fine, but you need to listen to your father. And,
I was the same way. In this. Both your parents born in India?
They were.
Yeah. Yet you had the American nuclear family.
Yes.
It's really what you had.
Right.
That we don't see as much anymore.
Well, you call it American nuclear. It's a universal constant.
It is. But a lot of people from here see it that way.
Yes, they do. I mean, that's the only thing they've been exposed to.
Exactly.
But family is a very big thing in Asia because over there they still have the multi-generational housing. So you'll have parents and grandparents living with, kids who are in their 30s and raising their own kids.
Yeah.
So you could literally have, in fact, one of my cousins, he has his grandmother and his children living in the house. So there's 4 generations living in a 3-bedroom place. So it's kind of crowded, but they're very happy, and they wouldn't think of anything else. Whereas once you're 18 and you can afford the title,
you're gone
on your car. Yeah, as fast as that Chevy will take you out of town. It's
that sounds like Mary Stafford. I know that that's my 17-year-old, almost 18. She's ready.
Yeah.
You've met Mary Stafford. She's ready to go. I grew up in Drew, and we had within eyesight of my house, my grandmother's house, and 2 aunts and uncles within eyesight of my house. So a little bit different, but it's the same way. I had that really close family unit. Mm-hmm. So much family support there, and when you talk to somebody that doesn't have that growing up, I don't really know what to tell them. We had a benefit they didn't have, really. I mean,
well, I had one deviation from what you're talking about, is that we were transplanted here in the United States, so we only could visit our other relatives, my cousins, my grandmother, grandmothers, every 4 to 6 years. So we were actually forced, we were compressed.
Yeah.
As far as the nuclear family goes, we had to rely on each other. That's why we were very close, and we stayed close, until my dad passed away a couple of years ago.
When did you come to America? From Canada, right?
Right, came from Canada. I like to say where I came to Mississippi because the date's very ceremonious. It's July 7th, 1977, which is 7/7/77. So it's our lucky day. We actually crossed the border on the 5th in Detroit, and we spent the first 2 nights at a friend's house in Dayton, Ohio, but we made it to Mississippi on 7/7/77.
So how'd your dad pick Mississippi?
He had a friend that he had known since high school, and when he decided things weren't going well for him in Canada, he had some issues with his promotions and so forth. Basically, it was racial discrimination that he had to deal with. And his friend was a instructor here at Mississippi Valley State University. He lived in Greenwood, and he was making a nominal salary, as people did, probably like $10,000-$12,000 a year. But he struck gold by investing in a sonic drive-in with his savings, and he just started sprouting them all over Mississippi. And he told my father, who was very close to him, look, you can make a killing over here. Come on, join me. You're a smart guy. You work hard. Try your hand at business. So we were here, and we actually spent our first 3 weeks at his house when we moved here to Mississippi.
I've asked you this before, but why do immigrants seem to do so well. I mean, I have my own what I believe, but I want to hear it from you because you do see that. I mean, if you really want to get down to it, people already here have a lot more resources than immigrants do, yet probably on a per capita basis, immigrants tend to do better. Why is that?
Well, it's not a direct correlation, that if you come from another country, you're going to do well here. But there's a lot of factors, filtering factors, that might make it possible. Uh, Number one, it's hard to get here.
Yeah.
So you have to have money, which is a really good, key to getting here. You have to have industriousness. You have to have connections. There's a lot of different factors that you have to go through just to get over here. So there's a filtering process built in if you go through legal immigration.
So if you go through legal immigration, we're accepting the best of the best anyway. Is that kind of what you're saying?
If you're sponsored by a company or you have something like that, a lot of legal immigration now has shifted towards just being family members of people who are already over here. Now, unless your whole family is smart, you might have less of a sifting process there. But it does take a lot, and this is true in the British or Commonwealth system of immigration. They look at your degrees, your viability in the country, and they give you a score. The United States has a slightly different system, but we entered because we were able to invest money and start a business here. I think the threshold back then was $35,000, and that was my dad's pension and his life savings at the time. And he was supposed to create jobs with his investment, which he definitely has done over the years. But so you have to have some industriousness. There is that sifting process, but also a lot of us in the countries where we leave, we're growing up without a safety net. It's like walking a tightrope without the net underneath. You're a lot more focused probably in training if you can fall, even if you're standing at just 6 feet high. So we grow up with that process. We have to deal with a lot of hardship, and in other countries you don't have as good a relationship between risk and reward like you do in the United States. In the United States, you tend to be rewarded for hard work.
But do you think maybe what you're saying is, not to interrupt you, but what you're saying is that because you've seen a place where you don't have that relationship, you appreciate it a little more?
Yeah.
And you take it, therefore you can take advantage of it?
You definitely appreciate it more. I mean...
and that's really kind of what I was wondering, is that just appreciation of the opportunities we have? Do you look at Americans and go, how do you not appreciate?
No, I actually know why. I mean, I have a general idea. I don't want to say I know why. That's presumptuous. But if you ever watch two people playing chess, you seem to play better in your head, just being able to see it, because the pressure isn't on you. I mean, you're out of that tunnel, and you have a greater appreciation for the whole game. You can see both people's side or perspective.
Like the armchair quarterback.
Yes, exactly right. Or
it's easy to sit in your armchair and say, "Oh, they did that wrong."
Or somebody watching Wheel of Fortune. Let's be real simple. You can solve the puzzles a lot faster.
Yeah.
I mean,
without everybody watching you.
Exactly. So when you go through those kind of processes, it's easier when you're actually working and you're working towards a goal, having nothing to fall back upon to do well, than it is if you have the safety nets. You think that everybody's entitled to something, or you're not doing so bad because everybody else in the neighborhood is doing about the same. You hang out with the same guys in the same bars or the same basketball court or football field or whatever, then you just sort of compare notes with that group. You don't look at the broader picture. And being outsiders, we came in understanding that there's so much opportunity. We looked at what everybody was doing. We were exposed to a broad range of people, and we could see what the successful people were doing. We had a broader perspective. I think Dad encouraged us to be exposed to those things.
I always say success leaves clues.
Yes, exactly. You watch it, but you don't have to have a direct imitation. I learned a lot of great things from successful people, and not all of them were positive behaviors.
Yeah.
I learned a lot of things in watching successful people that I wanted to avoid. I mean, not to be disparaging to my father, but My father did things that I do differently, and I do that based upon watching how it affected him for 30 something years in my direct observation. Overwhelmingly, he was a great teacher, but he did make mistakes just like I do. And
Sure.
my kids would probably take their path differently than I do, too. So.
Do you worry about your kids not having that hunger, maybe? Because
Yes.
because they had it easier than you, probably.
Oh, they had a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yes, and I sheltered them from things, but I tried to take a slightly different approach. One, I encouraged them to go into something that they're interested in.
Yeah.
I did not. My father wanted me to be a doctor, and I went all the way to medical school for a year.
I didn't know that.
Yes, I went to medical school for a year, and I absolutely hated it. I was like robo student. I was the first person in the graduating class to get into medical school. And then when I got to where I thought I wanted to be, I found out I hated it. I'm encouraging the kids to find something that they like, to find something they excel in, and then I'll give them the most incredible platform they could ask for to launch their dreams. It's not so much that I'm relieving them of the pressure of doing well. What I'm doing is giving them incentive. If you really want to do well in something you like, you can. So why waste that opportunity? And I have this discussion with them almost on a weekly basis. I call them every night, ask them how they're doing with their school. I ask them if they're eating properly, if they're getting enough rest, if they made new friends. And I call them every day because I know they're not going to.
Yeah, they're not going to call.
They don't even text. Well, maybe they respond to text. That's about it. But I do that, and I have these general. There has to be face to face. I'm always telling them about what their grandfather went through, what I went through, and how little they had of those things to worry about. So why should they not flourish? Why should they not build on a bigger platform and really launch their careers? So I try to tell them you have such bountiful opportunities. I could only dream of having this much money and this much access and those other things. I was.
Is life more about access than money, maybe? Or success, business success?
It can be. I think that one of my regrets is when I was young, I tended to dismiss people who were popular or kind of shaking hands with other folks. And I thought, that was just a silly way of going about
Yeah.
business, that you had to be the smartest kid, you had to answer the questions first, you had to be the robo student, which I
But
call
it's
myself.
good to be both, though, isn't it?
Oh, it's much better. And
Yeah.
in fact, there's a lot of people who are exceedingly smart, who have some of the most brilliant ideas, but people detest them, or they don't want them to do well, and they'll fight them off or sabotage them. So it's always good to be well connected with people. And the opportunities, I'm finding this out just in the last few years, the amount of doors that can be opened if you are willing to listen to a variety of perspectives and meet people and really engage them socially, it's just